So anyway, we're going to talk today just a little bit about career and technical education and the kicking off the year. Really going to probably be out of here by about 2 or a little bit after, let you guys get to some afternoon activities. Obviously this morning, I think all of you started off with some industry tours. I was with our MLR and collision folks at Toyota of Knoxville and Lexus of Knoxville, and we had a great experience out there today. Again, what you'll learn about me is I don't know anything about CTE, or at least I started there. I like to think I've learned a little bit in the last 9 months, but I am amazed at the opportunities when I go out and do tours and things like that, at really what we as a department can offer kids in terms of real world accessible opportunity. And that's one of the things that excites me. And so today was just another reinforcing experience in that regard for me to be a part of that industry tour. So I hope you had some similar experiences and you're walking away from those this morning with some stuff that this afternoon you can put into application. So in the afternoon, again, general session, we'll hopefully be done here by about 2, maybe a little bit after, and then we'll be moving, I think, Ula, is that correct, to the CTE building for the breakouts? Okay, so we're moving across the way a little bit for some breakout sessions by cluster, and she'll give you some more information about that in just a few minutes. Can everybody hear me okay in the back and everywhere? Great, all right. So a little bit about me. So I started into this role about 8 months ago, coming from a non-CTE background. So I've got a chance to get around a little bit and meet a few of you in different scenarios, but I haven't met everybody yet, and I probably won't meet everybody today either. So this may be the first time we've crossed paths, and if it is, it's nice to meet you. Tell you a little bit about myself. I'm a Knox County Schools product, proud Fulton graduate. So that's one thing I tend to tell people because, again, it was a school and a community that's still part of my life. I'm a husband. I have 4 children. My wife and I have 4 children. And again, family's a big important thing with me. I'm starting my 18th year with Knox County Schools. I was a middle school science teacher for 8 of those years. Worked shortly as an assistant principal. Figured out I really didn't like being a principal that much. And then had a chance to work with our curriculum instruction department in different capacities for the past almost 9 years now. I was over the TAP department, which was not the teaching as a profession, but the teacher advancement program, really kind of the beginning phases of team, which may have a good or a bad standing with you. But we were doing it way back in Holston in like 2005 and 6, really kind of using that model for professional development and growth. And then I was involved with professional learning for Knox County Schools, was the director of professional learning for about 1.5 years in a new position that was created there before getting what I consider great opportunity to come be a part of the CTE department. And now I've been doing that for about 8 months. So again, I've bounced around a little bit, but just to tell you a little bit about where I come from and my background before I came into this role. I also want to kind of orient you to our team as a department, and some of these folks I'm sure you're very familiar with. Just wanted to take the opportunity today, if you were new to the department or maybe hadn't paid attention in a while as to who does what, wanted to be able to kind of highlight that for you today as well. So we have an office operations team that's made up of 3 very important people. I put them first on here because they're probably the people that keep us running the best. And so first is Deborah Heron, one of our administrative assistants. Deborah, do you care to stand up in the back? Thank you. Now, I don't want to put Deborah on the spot because I mean she loves to talk in public in front of people. But Deborah, how long have you been with the CTE department?
This is my 33rd year, I believe.
Wow. All right. So Deborah knows a little bit about the work that we do, and she's been kind of shifted roles a bit, taking on a lot more responsibility with our bookkeeping and budget management, which again, if you've been around CTE for a while, you know is a big old beast to handle. Certainly a lot of my learning curve in the last year was tied to that. And she does a wonderful job with that and is going to be doing a little bit more this year with our purchasing processes. Now that's some of our purchasing sort of internal work that we do, but it's also very complex and complicated because we have lots of restrictions and guidelines and other people even outside of Knox County Schools that we have to work with in that process. I'll talk a little bit more about that in a little while, but we are very glad to have Deborah, and she does a wonderful job for us, and I wanted to put a face with a name. If you guys are to be in contact with her, you'd know who you're dealing with. Next is Shelley Branham, another one of our administrative assistants. Shelley, do you care to stand up? And now, Shelley, you've got, what, a couple of months on me. That's about it as far as CT department. How long have you been with us?
1 whole year.
1 whole year. We're on the 1 year anniversary, and she still wants to come back, so that's a good thing. Shelley, if you've done any travel with us or been away for training and needed a substitute, chances are you have probably had to deal with Shelley, which is always a pleasure, right, to deal with Shelley. But she handles all of our travel. If you're traveling and you need to, you get money back for that, for your expenses, she's the person that you deal with. And she really kind of day-to-day is my assistant. So again, if you call the phone number listed for me, you're probably going to get Shelley, and that's who you'd be talking with, at least first, if you contact us. So that's Shelley, our assistant. And then last is Blake, and is Blake here today? Blake's probably not here today. So we can't put a face with a name, but you do need to know Blake Hittle. He's our asset manager. And so if you haven't met him yet, he was also very busy last year, new to the position. And he was doing a lot of legwork on the purchasing side last year. We're trying to get him more on the receiving and inventory side this year. But you're going to be seeing him soon. Your inventories for your QPI folders, the updating of that, he's in charge of that. And so I would expect here in the next probably 6 weeks or so, he's going to be getting you guys updated inventories based on last year's equipment and all that into those folders for you. So he's going to handle that. If you've got things in your classroom you're needing to not have there anymore and you want to get rid of, he handles the surplusing of items. If you've got things that you are receiving from the department or other teachers, he handles those asset transfers. So anything that has to do with things that we own and properties that are moving from classroom to classroom, he's the guy that deals in all of that. So formerly that was Josh Garland, if you knew Josh in that role. Of course, Josh teaches for us now. As far as facilitators go, we still have 6. First is Chris Tucker, who is standing in the back of the room. Chris, do you have anything you'd like to say today?
No, just I'm so glad that the school year's finally starting.
Yeah.
Kids get to go back to school.
That's always a good thing. So Chris does a lot of different career clusters: advanced manufacturing, culinary arts, IT, STEM. He's going to be doing some additional work with middle schools this year. You're going to see this, but I'll go ahead and tell you over time, again, please forgive me if any of my assumptions are wrong, but I've tried to clarify my assumptions for the last 8 months. And I want to make sure that our presence and contact with middle schools gets to be a little bit more consistent. And so part of that work is going to fall with Chris this year in terms of middle schools. And then, of course, JD is going to play a role in that as well. There's a thing called micro teams, which I don't expect you to be super familiar with, but I'll talk a little bit about that and where all that fits into the work that Knox County Schools central office is doing with the individual schools. So Chris is going to take on a little bit more with middle schools this year. Next, we have the man, the myth, and the legend, Buck Coatney. Buck, you want to wave for everybody back there? Thank you. They got wet at the construction site today, so his hair is a little messed up. He's a little sad about that. Yeah, all right. But Buck is working with our architecture and construction teachers and transportation. Continue to do the CTE Goes Live events, and we're going to talk a little bit about the dates and times for those. Gina Kirby made it. They got through the traffic. I see back there. Gina, do you have anything you want to say? Teachers will be here in a minute. Okay. But Gina's going to continue this year. No changes there to work with health sciences, criminal justice, and fire safety. Ula is quietly my saving grace because she's very detail-oriented and I'm not. So she keeps me on track and comes and asks me difficult questions all the time about where things are that I was supposed to do and did I contact people and all that, which I greatly appreciate, even though in the moment I'm probably act very angry and snippy about. But I do appreciate it, Ula. You do. You're a great asset to me and to the team. She's going to continue to work with our business, finance, and marketing teachers. JD, any wise words?
Not from me.
Oh, okay. That's true. JD's working with cosmetology, human services, AV production, teaching as a profession, and again with some middle schools through those micro team networks that we're going to have this year. Steve, I saw. Is he? Okay, he pulled them out. So Steve's primary role really within Knox County is overseeing the driver's ed program, but he does a lot of work with us. He's going to continue to work this year with the agriculture teachers. And then he also is huge with our process for getting industry certifications purchased and allocated to teachers in classrooms. And that's a whole other big bear depending on which vendors you're going through. I know he was very hands-on with even the ASE stuff last year and even the administration of it. So he's an asset in that regard. So to tell you a little bit about kind of our department goals, these are our goals for this year, and I will talk a little bit about the initiatives that fit into them. Some of these goals, and I shared this same information with the new teachers that we met with a few weeks ago, or a week ago, I guess. I don't think some of these goals are going to be ones that change like in the next year. They're really goals that I think we can kind of ground our work in over time. Even though maybe the initiatives and how we approach that work might change, I think the goals that I see as being important for the department and where we're going to be essentially spending our time, effort, and money are ones that I think are investing in a longer term outcomes for the department. And so the first one being that a goal of expanding all students' exposure to careers in industry. We, again, hear a lot that that kids just don't know what's out there for them, and we end up having a certain type of kid, I think sometimes, that ends up in certain programs because of kind of how they're placed and programmed and their awareness. So part of what we have to do, I think, as a department, and when I say we, really me and coordinating with others, is start to build opportunities for kids to get earlier exposure to what's out there for them. And so one way that we're doing that this year, and we've met initially with our middle school principals, and we're going to be you're going to be hearing more as a department about this, is really starting to work harder to establish that middle school career exploration course that some of the high schools right now are offering for their freshmen to do that kind of orientation, rotation sort of setup. We're going to really spend some time this year building out a curriculum to where that could be adopted more broadly at the middle school level as an 8th grade course. Meaning that they're going to be taking on, those CTE teachers at the middle school may have the opportunity, I should say, in working with their principals to bring that into the curriculum through the related arts rotation and that sort of stuff at the school level. So we don't know what that looks like entirely yet, but we're going to spend this year figuring that out. To do that work, we're going to be calling on some of our high school CTE teachers, both as content experts from their career clusters to help advise in building that curriculum. Also, with those of you who may have had experience teaching career explorations at your high school, calling on you to help us with thinking through the development of that curriculum. And what we hope to have at the end of this year is a package of resources and activities that we can share with any middle school that would want to take this on and teach it in the next year for the kids that would be upcoming. So what does that do for you guys at a high school level? It exposes them to what's out there. They can know the career clusters. They know what it is to take a CTE elective focus, and they come into the high school much better informed about how to get engaged and start working into CTE programming. The other thing, and JD had really started this work prior to myself coming in with 3 of our high schools, is we're continuing our work with a special ed and CTE cohort group of teachers and counselors. And so again, we know that certain classes, certain CTE career clusters maybe sometimes is where we find our special education students placed more often, and we have certain areas where they're not placed. And so what we're looking at is, why is that? Are there more opportunities that we're missing for some of our special education students? And then also, are you guys equipped to meet the IEPs and the modifications and the requirements necessary to help those kids be successful in your classroom? And so it's really kind of a combination of figuring out what can we do to support CTE teachers in their classrooms with these students, and then from an advising standpoint in working with counselors and administrators, how do we ensure that we're, again, providing more equitable access to CTE programming as we look across the board. Second, and this is going to be a big one again, ongoing. I don't see this as being a goal that's going to change, but increasing readiness for post-secondary, college and career. So last year, probably you heard a little bit of traction. I know, again, JD's work around EPSOs. Last year, you probably heard a little bit about the Ready Graduate Indicator, that this is coming down the pike. It's going to be something that schools are held accountable for, to say, how can you justify, prove that your students coming out of your high school are ready for college and career? And the state has defined that in multiple pathways, and one of those involves our industry certifications that they can earn only through the CTE programs. And so we want to continue to look at putting our funds, putting our resources, putting our professional development time and effort into ensuring that, again, you guys are equipped and understand what it takes for students to earn those industry certifications, that your counselors and your administrators understand the different types of industry certifications, what it takes to earn those, what value they contain and carry for the student at the next level. And there's a lot of learning really still to happen around a lot of that as we continue to focus there. Then also with our early post-secondary offerings, trying to expand what we have in terms of dual enrollment. So when a student comes into a CTE program, you know, if you look at those career clusters and those programs of study, it's not just industry certifications that they could earn, but there could be alternative AP courses that could be part of that programming. There could be dual enrollment opportunities through TCAT or through Pellissippi. So we're continuing to look at those opportunities and build those into the programs as well as we look at our offerings. And again, whatever supports you guys need in terms of making those happen. And then, of course, as we are required to do, to integrate those content areas into CTE, and then vice versa, how our CTE standards look in the traditional core areas. But again, not making you teachers of math, but finding those practical links where mathematics is in application through the work that you do in the CTE classroom and with literacy as well on the ELA side. Third, providing real-world exposure to soft skills and the workplace. And of course, this happens in a variety of ways, but one of the bigger ones that we kind of have, I think, as showcase sort of things here in Knox County are those real-world events like CTE Goes Live, and we had lots of participation in that in those programs last year, or in that program last year. But we also have other ones. I asked Buck to kind of give me just a couple of dates for you guys to kind of put placeholders to keep in mind. We are, as far as the CTE Goes RealWorld Events, going to continue those this year, and we're going to have the golf tournament again. The date for that one is October 25th, which I believe, Buck, is a Thursday. Is that correct? So that is a school day. I think the feedback that we got as far as corporate sponsors being there and being a part of the tournament and participating was that a Thursday, a weekday was better for them because, again, they could probably justify a work day and being there on site playing golf instead of working. So they were more likely to do that than a Saturday, so that's sort of why we've gone back to a weekday to do that. There'll be more information coming out about that, but let me say last year we had some teachers who really were very successful at fundraising by using that one event and able to completely fund some of their CTSO travel and some of that work. So it's a great opportunity for you. These events give the opportunity for you to do some fundraising and then to expose your kids to some things that maybe otherwise you wouldn't have the money or the resources to do. So the golf tournament's a great example of that. May 3rd is for CTE Goes Live, so we've got the date set for that. Of course, that's kind of the end of the year culminating project. And there will be a lot more information to come out about those as we go along. Two other ones that will be happening this year, we're still firming the date up, is the county disaster drill piece that we're going to be involved in. Gina, do you want to say anything real quick about that? I know it's got some health science focus to it. What else? What are our other programs that are really involved with that?
Typically, health science kind of gets together with either drama or cosmetology at their school to do some moulage, which is putting makeup on the victims or patients. And so the students are acting as the patients in the drill for the hospital. It's an annual drill that the hospitals have to do. It's part of their accreditation. So they are happy to use our students, and it also gives them exposure to this is what it looks like if you come into the hospital and are injured and you're triaged and where you go and all those kind of things. This year we're hoping to get a little bit more into the media and publicity of it. They don't typically like to publicize it because it's a surprise drill for the hospital, so you don't want them to be prepared for this emergency coming in. So I'm not sure exactly how that's going to look, but we're going to probably pull in maybe some marketing. I'm not sure. What else? AV. And get a little bit more publicity going, maybe some flyers and some different things like that. So,
all right, so a little bit different, multiple programs because of the idea that we're going to be able to publicize a little bit more than we had in the past, correct? Okay. So again, more information will come out about that. Top Wrench is another one that we'll be participating in again this year. Of course, Buck will be driving that a little bit more, and there'll be more information coming out for our programs about how to participate there. Work-based learning. So work-based learning is what I've also grown to understand is just how much extra stuff y'all do. I mean, it's a lot of stuff, so let me say it's recognized from somebody who didn't know a lot about CTE before. And work-based learning is one of those really valuable experience, but it takes a lot to make it happen. And so last year we used one of the Perkins Reserve grants to fund a work-based learning liaison position, which was Doris Presley. And so we actually moved funding into Perkins regular basic funding this year to maintain that position, because we felt like it was valuable and it was a resource that our teachers then had in terms of support and an extra set of hands for those work-based learning experiences. So we're going to continue that position this year. And then of course the CTSOs, whether you're doing those activities embedded into your classroom or actually taking them to the regional, the national, the international events. Those are some great opportunities. Last year, so the personal goal of mine is to get out and do a little bit more visiting of these events this year. Last year, my contact with them was typically with students who were kind of showcased at a couple of state events and got up to speak, but I was blown away by the kids that got up and were representing DECA and FBLA and getting up and talking about their experience and what it had meant to them and participating in that. So very excited to get out and see some of those competitions and see those performances happen this year. Fourth, continuing to provide high quality professional development for you guys to support your CTE classrooms. I hope, and what I've heard and seen, is that experiences like this morning, where you got to go out and be connected in with the industry, where you got to be embedded and ask those questions and see things in action that keep you current and keep you tied back into those career fields, that those are really valuable experiences. And that's very different. I've been related to PD for a while, just through other roles, but that's very different than what I had experienced in the past. So we definitely want to continue to do those. We have externship opportunities that happen in the summer. We had several of those this past summer. We used some work through the Pathways Initiative to have additional ones in June, but we believe in that, and I want to see that be something that we continue to do and incorporate as part of the work that you guys are doing. We're also very blessed to be able to offer the New Teacher Academy. If you haven't been a new teacher in the last few years, you may not know about that. But for our newly hired CTE teachers, we will have 5 different times this year that they'll come together and really just get a kind of a 101 basic introduction to elements of the team rubric, so those best practices in instruction, and then also, you know, many pieces that you guys know well are requirements within CTE related to QPI, the wonderful eTiger system that everybody loves. All of those sorts of things that people have to be aware of and trained on. We have an opportunity to do that training and help support our newest teachers who are experiencing a lot of challenge in those transitions sometimes. And then there's also obviously other conferences and training that's out there and available. As you'll hear me say about facilitators, you know, they're really for your career clusters, your first point of contact. So if you come across things and you say, wow, I'd really like to go to this, or this seems like a great opportunity for teachers in my area, take it to them. And that's always a great place to start if there's something out there that you think, you know, really would work or fit or is a need for us as a district or for you individually. The other one is the coaching model, which is going to change a little bit this year. If you were familiar with it, for the past 2 years, the state has had a piloted coaching model that the district has participated in, and it was set up around some very specific criteria. It was connected with a group called the New Teacher Project, TNTP, that's doing a lot of work with the state. And so a lot of hands in the pot, a lot of goals, and maybe sometimes not the right goals, and maybe they were the right goals, driving that process. We want to continue to have that model, but we're going to do it in a slightly different fashion this year. So we've got several experienced CTE teachers who are going to continue to work in the coaching model, but we're going to really connect that work tightly to the New Teacher Academy and working with those new teachers coming on to give them another set of hands, an extra set of eyes to come in to their classroom, to give them opportunity to go and visit those classrooms and see instruction happen there. And again, continue to work at developing a coaching model that we can sustain and again, give us a retention model, if you will, or a retention effort for some of our newest CTE teachers. And then last, just continuing to build strong partnerships with our community and with our industry partners. Big goal for myself this year, and it's as much about getting involved and learning about these processes, is I want an increased presence with the district level folks in advisory groups. I realize that each school has different ways, even different clusters have different ways that they go about conducting advisory work, but I want to make sure too that we have a district level presence and a district level advisory effort that's happening that will complement those things that you do at your school. Not looking to replace or take away anything that you guys are doing, only to add to. So want to see kind of what that might look like to develop. And my goal, as we were talking through some of that yesterday, would be to have kind of a district level meeting, at least one in the fall and one in the spring, that would have more of a presence from sort of all the schools and our district team as well. More information will come on that one. So when we look at kind of our support system for our newest teachers, we've got multiple levels there. Again, we talked about the facilitator, and this is just as true for you guys. If you've got district level questions, you need curriculum support. If you're looking at the timelines for turning things in, all that, you got questions about that, your facilitator is going to be your go-to person on that, and really just a great resource to start at any point. Then we also have our CTE department chairs, and again, I came in, participated just a little bit through the meetings last year with the CTE department chairs, but really look at their role as being one of that mentoring. They're on site, they're available, there's close proximity with the newest teachers, so being able to provide some of that mentoring for just those school and district level procedures that they may not be aware of. And then we think about those timelines, again, making sure that as a group, everybody in the building is aware when E-Tiger pieces are due or QPI or those sorts of pieces. The CTE department chair is going to be instrumental in that. And again, we'll talk more about department chair pieces when we have our first department chair meeting. And then the CTE coach, of course, is going to be, we're trying our best to kind of match those up with the newest teachers in terms of alike job roles. But they're going to be a support for pedagogy, really looking at what good CTE instruction looks like, and then help with the new teacher academy and transferring that learning to the classroom. The coaches for this year are listed here. We're excited these guys are taking this effort on with us. And my final couple of things here are really just some, I called them troubleshooting, but just the things that popped up for us last year that we wanted to make sure and kind of keep on your radar and have you be aware with us about. As far as equipment requests go, obviously we buy and maintain a lot of equipment in CTE. I think the list that Blake just put together for last year was like, I don't know, 1,200 items that we bought individually last year, and I think the grand list is about 15,000 in Excel, a 15,000 line spreadsheet. But it's a lot of stuff. But when you go to request equipment, please start with your facilitator. So if you've got things that you're interested in having or you need for your classroom, start there. And please know that we're always going to justify purchases through our standards. So if you've got something that you're looking for, something that you want, be prepared to talk about where it fits into supporting your standards in your classroom, because that's something we have to be able to justify on the back end at all times. The third is that we do not make capital improvements alone. That's not to say, when I say a capital improvement, a major change to your building, to your classroom structure, to a construction project is not really the responsibility of the CTE department, although there are things that we do, and that when we put in certain types of equipment, machinery, that sort of stuff, may require a capital improvement. But we're going to work closely with our maintenance department, our facilities group, to make sure we're doing those the way that we need to. And I tell you that because if something like that is happening in your classroom, where it's going to require some of that, just be patient, because it's a lot of hands involved in that process to make those things happen, which goes with my next one. Please demonstrate patience, because all of our purchasing last year shifted from a previous process where we could use a credit card to even go to Amazon and buy something that you may want for your classroom. And last year, at the time that I came in, we no longer had access to a credit card. Procurement had said we were no longer allowed to buy from Amazon. And so every single item we bought, with the exception of computers, we can buy through our in-house system. Any other item had to be done through a purchase order and an invoice process through a vendor that was approved and signed on with Knox County Schools. And that took quite a bit of time to get rolling. When I came in November, we had only spent about 10% of our budget. We were supposed to be by December at 50%. And so we were way behind in those timelines. And then Blake, bless his heart, he had to do a lot of work of, well, this is where this product is. This is who I want to buy it from. He would actually have to contact the company and get someone from the company to go to Knox County's website to sign up to be a vendor and input their tax ID and do all of that before we were ever even allowed to issue them a PO for the product. Then you've got spending limits that go into all that too. I could bore you for the next 45 minutes on how all that works, but I won't. I just say all that to say we're not sitting up there trying to slow down the process for you. We know that your request for equipment and the equipment list that we built for this year, ideally we'd be getting that into the classrooms as fast as possible, and we work to make that happen. Just know that it takes a lot to make that happen. And it's not going to be any easier this year with new spending restrictions and limits that are coming down the pike. So please do demonstrate patience. And note too, as far as equipment requests go, again, I will not pretend to have the full picture or scope of everything that's happened in CTE over the last 10 years. But know with me that equity is a priority in this district, and that we're going to continue to make sure that as we monitor our spending and we look at keeping that rotation of the equipment list accurate, that we're putting resources in classrooms across the district to support classrooms across the district. And I want people to feel like they have the space and the opportunity to ask for things. Doesn't mean I'm going to say yes all the time. But know that if you have a need, we want to know about it, and we're going to try to make the best choices and decisions with resources that we can to ensure that you have what you need to do your job. Okay? This is another troubleshooting one because we have a lot of travel, and this one hit us kind of hard at the very end of the year. So what we figured out is, again, I've traveled a little bit with the jobs that I've had and stuff, and so because if you do it a lot, you stay current on what that process is. When you don't do it a lot, then you just don't think about it, right? So one of the things we want to make sure, and I've got very, very little information on here because Shelley later is going to send you additional information with forms and you'll have all the copies and stuff you need. But if you are going to travel as part of your role as a CTE teacher, you're going to professional development, or maybe you're taking a field trip with kids for a CTSO, whatever that is, know that we do have to have the correct forms. That's a big part of it, meaning that before you go, you have to turn in a form called a travel request. We can't basically approve any payment for travel without a number that the Knox County Schools Central Office assigns to that travel request. So if you know you're going to be traveling and you're like, I have no idea what this form is, what this process is, just know before you leave, at least 3 weeks before, there is a form you're supposed to fill out and tell us about that. If you don't know where to find it or what it is, you can always call and ask Shelley. You can email Ask Shelley. I'm just here today waving the red flag to say there is a form we want before you go anywhere. We don't want you spending money out of your pocket. We don't want your school issuing checks that Knox County could ultimately come back and say we're not going to reimburse you for because you didn't follow the right process. Now, Shelley, correct me if I'm wrong, we've not had that happen yet because they've been very gracious, but we did have several instances this year where people came back from trips and went, oh, I need this money back, and we had never known they were going anywhere. So that could be a problem at some point. So please make sure you know that before you leave, we do need to know where you're going and what it's for. And then when you come back, there's another form called the Travel Reimbursement Request that you have to turn in. Again, I don't think we've denied anybody reimbursement, but technically speaking, there is a window of time after you return that if you went past that window, we could say you don't get your money back. So again, we need to be able to expedite that process too. To give you an example of that, we've got the fiscal year 18 budget that I'm still trying to closed on June 30th, and we're still waiting. Well, as of last week, we're still trying to finish up reimbursing travel from prior to June 30th. Because we're waiting on stuff to come in. So that creates backlogs for us. It creates backlogs downtown. Just make sure you know, again, those things are timely, and make sure you let us know what you're going to do. If that travel that you're going on requires a field trip, make sure you're putting that field trip in documentation. We're pretty good about that because I think principals at schools know enough about that they drive it, but make sure that you're letting us know about those field trips as well, because they do come through our office for approval. And then lastly, this is where I'm going to leave you for today, is my personal goal. I want this department to have a reputation. Well, the good news is every department already has a reputation. I want us to have a different reputation. And what do I want our reputation to be? Well, first of all, I want us to be generating talented and skilled students ready for whatever's next for them. And whether that right choice for them is TCAT or taking a job or going on to community college or four-year, whatever that is, I want us to be putting them in the best position to do that, okay? Advocating for what students need to be successful. You can believe that from my seat, I'm going to be doing that. I already am doing that. And I expect you all to do that because I don't know. I'm not daily in your classrooms. I don't know your industry. I don't know the field you came from. But I need you advocating for what we need to be doing as a district. And I welcome that input from you all. Next, applying resources to best support and develop career-ready students across the county. As I said, equity is a goal of mine. I want to make sure that we're spreading the wealth, no pun intended, around the district, and that we have programs in each school that are ready and are sustaining good growth in our students. Connecting tightly with our regional and local industry partners. Again, we can't be successful and operate in isolation, and so as much as we can do to ensure those connections happen, that we have those relationships, we want to make sure that's happening from our end, and I know you guys work more on the local level with your community partners. And then last, I want us to have the reputation of caring about our people and their needs, okay? Put your family first, come to work, love on your kids, and love on your students, and let's make sure that we're, again, setting them up for success in any way that we can do it. Okay, so that's pretty much all that I have for today. I encourage you also to have a wonderful year and make the most out of your breakout